Hello, welcome back to the channel. Today we'll be looking at a very important topic, which is Ponzi scheme. This is an aspect that a lot of people, especially people who want to invest, need to, pay attention to. Unfortunately, Ponzi scheme is closer to us than we all expect. All right. So, what is a Ponzi scheme? So, basically, we'll be looking at, what Ponzi scheme means, how these scammers or how these companies try to achieve their aim to defraud or to get their target clients, and also we're looking at red flags of Ponzi scheme. All right, so basically, what's a Ponzi scheme? We're saying a Ponzi scheme is that type of investment where returns are paid to existing investors from funds. That's fresh fund from other investors. So what that simply means is the return is not coming from anywhere. The return is not coming from their promised profit. Rather, the return is coming from fresh investors. All right. So basically, how does it work? Let's say that I have an investment that wants to give me, let's say 20% per, maybe per month or in 2 months or per annum, as the case may be. So what they do is, after promising and you've signed everything, they try to convince other investors to come into the scheme. And as they are coming to the scheme, fresh funds are coming into the scheme, and then they pay your return. That your 20% is paid to you from the fresh funds that are received from new investors. And this pyramid continues to expand and expand until, it gets to a point where, the base is no longer strong enough to cater for all the necessary interest, because the return is actually outrageous. For instance, somebody is promising you a return of, say, 20% per month. 20% per month multiplied by 12, that's around 240% per annum return. So what kind of investment is that, or what kind of business is that person going to do? I'm not saying that there are no businesses that can give such return, but I'm saying that you need to be wary when it comes to making such decisions, especially when the returns are very, very outrageous and not close to what the market expected return is all about. So how do we know and how do we keep track of these guys so we don't fall victim? What are the red flags? Number one red flag is the return. Usually when you see a Ponzi scheme, their returns are usually very, very outrageous. I mentioned earlier that 20% is very, very outrageous, right? Very, very outrageous. And they tell you again that the investment is risk-free, meaning that you don't have any risk, you don't have to worry. They try as much as possible to convince you, just to enable you, invest in such a scheme. And so anytime you see an investment where the return is so outrageous compared to what the market is actually giving, you have to be wary. You need to be, very, very careful. And that's the number one red flag. And the unfortunate thing is that most people actually look at return as the first thing in investment decision. And for me, I think what's even most important is security of my capital. That's return of my investment, not return on investment. Because return on investment basically talks about what I'm going to be getting, while return on investment tells me more about the ability of me to be able to get back this money that I'm investing. And that's why if you go to banks today and you want to take a loan from them, they are very careful. They try to look at your earning potentials. They want to look at your cash flow adequacy. They want to look at whether you have a collateral. Why are they doing all this? They are putting all those things in place to ensure that the moment you default, they will be able to see something to hold. Second one is lack of transparency. So investment that provide clear information about investment strategies and risk. Unfortunately, Ponzi scheme does not tell us where the money comes from. Obviously, they just make it look like the money is coming from their real profit. But you and I know very well that the return they're actually paying to existing investors are actually gotten from fresh funds. That's from the new target. All right, it's actually lack of transparency. Real investment would be very transparent, will explain the business model to you, would make you understand the risk of the business and also how the business is going to be run. All right, but when it comes to Ponzi scheme, basically, you don't have a clear cut of what kind of business they are into. I remember back then, a colleague has actually met me who was introduced to a Ponzi scheme and was trying to convince me to join. All right, so actually I went to their office. They created one office back then in Usetu, and then I was there, and the CEO was trying to convince me we're into paint, we are into real estate, we are into that. And when you see an investment that is, the business model is not clear cut. They will tell you they are into real estate, they are into what's it called? They are into farming. There are a lot of things. All they are just trying to do is to convince you, to make you believe that their returns or their monies come from different sources, and so that the market shock cannot affect them, like their business is diversified, and all of that. So that's one of the. I'm not saying that there are no businesses that actually, have diversified portfolios and all of that, but all I'm trying to just say is that you have to be very careful when you're trying to choose. So by the time you start hearing this thing, all you need to do is just to intensify, efforts to be able to get clear cut about what kind of business, these guys actually do. So Ponzi scheme, basically, they don't really explain, the concept or the model of that business to you. All right. So number 3 is pressure to invest quickly. Pressure. So they will always make you want to make it seem like, it's very, very urgent. If you don't do it now, by tomorrow, this will happen, the return will reduce and all of that. They create that sense of urgency. And so if you don't, get conscious, or if you're not careful, you may just be trapped and you start borrowing money. I remember back then the common one in Nigeria where, people invested their money in MMM and, all of that. And in fact, and the funny thing about Ponzi scheme is the first time you're entering into it seems very good. You get returns and you try to bring in your families and friends. You want to, bring more people into it. You can even go the entire return on your investment. You invest it again, even go to the extent of, borrowing money from people to invest so you can get, all this. Like I said, it's a pyramid scheme, right? So it continues to grow until it gets to a point where the base is that, because the base is not sitting on a model, on a business model, it gets to a point where the total return is not is more than how much fresh fund is coming. Remember, we said that the fresh fund that are coming in is what they're actually using to pay existing investors as return. So it will get to a point where the total return is higher than how much is coming in. At that point, they start to stagger returns, and then they start having problems, and then before they will tell you eventually that the whole scheme has crashed. So when you have such investment that is actually putting pressure on you, you have to invest now. You need to just take a step backwards and say, listen, let me do my own due diligence, and that's very, very important. All right. So, another one is most Ponzi schemes are actually unregistered. They are not, or they are uncertified. Even though most of them have corporate offices, bring people there. Some people even go to the extent of getting experts to help them. Another red flag is, like I said, is unregistered investment. Most of them are actually unregistered. Most Ponzi schemes are actually unregistered, and also their sellers are unlicensed. They are not licensed, right? So, and here in Nigeria, for instance, we have a CAC that actually registers all businesses. So it's a different aspect from the regulation part, right? CAC, yes, CAC registers business, but to say that a business is registered with CAC doesn't mean that they can't do Ponzi scheme or something. So it's you on the part of the investor. You need to actually do your own due diligence. So how do I do research when it comes to investment? Very, very important. The number one I want to talk about that is very, very key is reviews and testimonials. So you need to review that investment. Go online and check what other investors, even though I know that some investors or some of these schemes actually plant people here and there to give good testimonies about the investment, but one or two comments can still be a trigger for you to sit back and try to reassess such an investment. All right. Check also regulatory agencies. You need to check all these agencies, the likes of SEC, the like of FINRA, to check whether these businesses are actually registered and adequately regulated before you go into it. So basically, unfortunately, Ponzi scheme, like I said, it has come to stay. There's nothing you can do. They keep coming up with fresh ideas, fresh ideologies, and gimmicks to get their investors. So you have to be very, very careful. Next time you have an investment to go into, you need to sit down, do your analysis very well. Don't allow anybody to put you under pressure. Try as much as possible to do your own due diligence before you go into the investment. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel to get more insightful videos on finance and personal investment. Thank you for watching.